Welcome to episode 68 of the Gambots podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co-host.
It's Christian.
On this week's episode, Christian and I both watched the Netflix original movie, Velvet Buzzsaw, and Christian and I both watched the newest Pixar movie, Onward, on Disney+. And then finally, we'll talk about what we're checking out this week and what we're going to be looking at in the upcoming week as well. And then we'll end with our Amazon review game. But first, Christian, you and I both watched Velvet Buzzsaw. Now, this is on Netflix. It's directed by Dan Gilroy, and it's starring Jake Gyllenhaal, and the other big name is really Rene Russo, and John Malkovich is in it. What did you think about this movie?
This movie was longer and more boring than I would have hoped that it would have been.
Yeah, this movie, it's weird because it's a longer movie. It's an hour and 57 minutes, and really the first 45 are, I think, not necessary. I liked it a lot better the second half there when they started getting into like the ghost killer. Real quick, what is the general premise of this movie?
So the plot is that these people all kind of exist in the high-end art community, and one of the assistants or interns or something of one of the agencies, her neighbor in her apartment complex dies, and she just kind of lets herself into his apartment and finds a whole bunch of artwork that she then decides to sell against the wishes of his estate. Yes,
and so what I think is funny about this movie is when I was looking into it, it said it was a satirical horror movie, and I definitely didn't get the satirical elements of horror. Like, they definitely, I think, poke fun at modern art, but did you find any satire in the actual horror of this?
No, this was just a horror movie.
Right, so, and everything we look at up to finding out this artist whose name was Dees is like at modern art, and then Dees is a very traditional artist, which I was surprised that they went that direction.
Yeah, minus the fact that he was using like blood and stuff. Everything he does looks like it could be like a Van Gogh or a Monet.
Right, and so the main character in this is Gyllenhaal, and I'm not sure if I like Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor. I really liked him in Donnie Darko. I didn't like him in Nightcrawler as much, but that might have been like he was supposed to play a creepy guy, and I just didn't like his character. And I thought he was like okay in Southpaw. What do you think of Gyllenhaal in this, and in general, I guess?
I liked him in this, but I also do like him in general. I watched him when I was a kid in the movie October Sky, and ever since then, I've been a fairly big fan of his. I'm always excited to see what he's doing.
And so we got the main premise of like they find these paintings. After they find these paintings, people start like mysteriously dying. Where I think the movie picks up is really after 45 minutes, once the Dees ghost starts killing people. So I want to talk a little bit about like the first time you actually see a hint of supernatural is like a handyman who works for the people who found the paintings accidentally somehow sets himself on fire while driving and crashes into an abandoned like gas station. And so after he miraculously has a fire extinguisher on hand to put out the fire of the car, he like walks into an abandoned gas station that has like a monkey painting over its sink.
Yeah, which is crazy on its face, but the only way that this works for me is if that was also a painting done by this dead guy, which, I mean, what are the odds that this would just be hanging in a random gas station on this guy's route? But yeah, it seemed like he was like drawn there to get painting napped.
Yeah, and this is where I think the problems with the ghost come into play. Is the first thing you see and the ghost kill someone is like hands reach out of the painting and pull this guy in. So, like, my initial thought is, okay, this guy kills people with his paintings or through paintings. And after that, that's not necessarily the case. It just seems to be killing people in random fashion after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the paintings that are the root of it, because it's the people that die or anyone who has like made a profit off of the paintings, since his will explicitly said that he wanted them sold or he wanted them destroyed, and so anybody who's selling them is starting to die. But yeah, the method of death is not always painting related. Like at one point, this guy gets lured into like an apartment attic by a hallucination, and then a disembodied hand hangs him by his necktie.
Yeah, that was the one that confused me most. But we had actually talked about it. That guy was related in selling the paintings in some way, it turns out, right?
Yeah, he had bought he'd bought some of them to hang in his gallery. But these murders get increasingly strange, because at the beginning most of them are believable. Like the guy disappears at this random gas station in the woods, like he must have hit his head and wandered into the woods, and like this guy hung himself by his necktie, whatever. So and so has their neck broken. Maybe it was like a mugging. But then somebody gets turned, like they get killed by a live paint and get turned into graffiti, and then somebody else gets murdered by their own tattoo. Like, it gets increasingly strange as the movie progresses.
Yeah, well, I mean, even by the third one, it's someone who's trying to sell the D's paintings. She like puts her hand into this modern art exhibit that's like a ball that you're supposed to put your hand into, and it's like a sensory feeling. Her arm just like gets cut off by a buzzsaw, and everyone's just like, yeah, it must have malfunctioned. Like, were there moving things in there that could clearly sever an arm like that? Because it did not seem like it.
Yeah, it looked like a meat grinder. It was never really explained exactly what was inside those holes. It just says, like, it's a sensory experience. So I have no idea. I didn't even think there was moving parts in there when they were describing it the first time. I thought it was just, like, one of those, like Fear Factor things where you put your hand in a bucket and it's
you touch some grapes.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, they're eyeballs. Like, what? But it's I didn't know if there was moving parts in there or not, but the way they just kind of waved it off as a freak accident, there must have been.
Right, but the thing is, like, I could see if it's like, oh, there's moving parts, like her hand got torn, like it got ripped off, like her arm was very clearly like cut off, so that posits that, like, that's not just a straight sheet, like somewhere in there's like a thing for a buzzsaw to come off, which does not seem safe to have like the public putting their hand into.
Yep.
Boy, which actually, that led to one of the funnier jokes, because I don't get modern art, and it's like one of those things where I tend to like traditional art more. I understand like modern art is trying to make a point, but this movie, if it's satirical anywhere, it's in just making fun of modern art, because this woman like gets her arm cut off and is dead, and they're like, yeah, the guards thought it was part of the exhibit, and so did everyone else. So it's like this dead woman with like blood everywhere, and they're like, yeah, the kids were walking all over and getting blood everywhere, until someone finally like knew her and was like, what is going on?
Yeah, that was a fun moment. But the woman that found her was Natalia Dyer, who people would probably know from being the older sister in Stranger Things. And I mean, that poor girl found 3 bodies in this movie.
Oh yeah, I felt really bad for her, because it was like everyone she got employed by ended up dying.
Yeah, which I was convinced until almost the last scene of the movie that she was somehow going to be the killer, because it's like you said, every single time she's like, I guess I'll go work for this person, they get killed like that night.
Yeah, that would have been a much better twist, and I think actually would have made this movie like worth watching had that had been the case, because that would have been a great twist.
Yeah, I started second guessing that when the like ultra supernatural stuff started happening, like when that girl gets turned into graffiti. Like I don't think Natalia Dyer can do that in the real world.
Yeah, man, that girl who gets turned into graffiti, she doesn't know that area, but she's like in a bad area, and she's like, oh, a high-end art gallery, I'm going to walk into here. Like,
that was so dumb. And she was facing that way the entire time. Like, imagine looking up and seeing like a brick wall or like a whatever that was, like corrugated aluminum.
Yeah.
And looking down at your phone and trying to send an email, And then when you look back up, there are doors and it's an art gallery. You don't wander inside there.
Look, man, it's Diagon Alley. Someone hit some stuff.
I mean, I guess I'm just not part of that world. Like maybe she was like, "Oh, it's a cool new pop-up installation."
Oh my gosh. So I want to talk about the characters we actually do get to know in this a little bit, because I think the people who are the main characters are all pretty much bad people, and everyone else are superfluous and do not need to be in this movie at all.
100%.
So we have Rene Russo, who is like the boss of Jake Gyllenhaal's girlfriend, and she's trying to sell these paintings to make a lot of money that they basically stole from this guy's estate. Jake Gyllenhaal's girlfriend's also doing the same thing, and Jake Gyllenhaal is like a super pretentious like art critic. But I would say, like, of those three, he's probably the best one, because once he finds out that like these guys are basically stole stuff from this guy's estate and all that, like, he tries to stop it, whereas they are just trying to make a buck.
Yeah, he does seem like once he realizes that like a crime has been committed, because again, I don't know this world, but it seemed like she was like, "Oh, I found these in the trash and now I want to sell them," and everyone was like, "Yep, perfectly legal." But then she was like, but I actually found them in his apartment," and they were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa."
They're like, they're because they have lawyers. Like, you're misremembering, right? Like, because they didn't want someone else to take a claim to them.
Yeah, it's a lot of this is real strange. But yeah, once Jake Gyllenhaal realizes that like something not right has gone on, he's immediately like, "Oh no, I think I have to be out."
But that's what leads to my confusion of like this ghost, because at first I was like, oh, the ghost is killing anyone who has the paintings, but then it's like, well, that's not necessarily the case. He's targeting people who are profiting off the paintings, but then Jake Gyllenhaal tries to not profit off of them and is like, no, we got to destroy these, and the ghost is still targeting him.
Yeah, doesn't really make a lot of sense.
But I gotta say, Dees, he has a flair for the theatrics on some of the ways that he kills people.
Oh my, yes.
So at the very end, he ends up Jake Gyllenhaal's girlfriend. He ends up like creating a fake gallery, getting her completely imbued with paint, and then turning her into a graffiti. To kill Jake Gyllenhaal, he creates like this robot that you see in the beginning that Jake Gyllenhaal's a complete idiot to approach it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a ghost that you know at this point in the story that there is a ghost running around killing people, and his first impulse is like, I should investigate this.
Right, and he's already freaked out. He's like, guys, this ghost is trying to kill us. When you see that, you just get out of there. Like, you're not in hero mode.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then got a little bit lazy on his second to last attempt on Rene Russo. He tried to knock a statue on her, but missed. And
then he had to go to Plan B, which was bringing her tattoo to life.
Yeah, like he's like, look, that wasn't my best work. I went back. I went back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I need another go at this.
So Rene Russo has a buzzsaw tattoo on her neck. Which was that ever explained why she had that?
Half-heartedly. Towards the beginning, somebody mentions that he's like known who she was since she was in a punk band like 35 years ago, which was called Velvet Buzzsaw. I have no inkling as to why they thought that was important enough to make it the title of the movie, but there it is.
I will say, and now that I'm saying this, I wish I had paid closer attention to the paintings, but Rene Russo's death was actually, I thought, set up well, because one of the paintings she took from Dees was like a girl sitting with her cat in two shadows, like approaching her. And then the final shot we see of Rene Russo is her sitting with her cat in two shadows there. And you're like, oh, something's actually going to happen. She didn't survive this. I'm wondering if like Gyllenhaal and the girlfriend and any of the other people who died had paintings that really was like, this is how you're going to die. So then those killings would have made more sense. But I didn't pay that close of attention.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. The only one I remember is the one that freaked out Daveed Diggs, which was like those three people in front of the campfire. And that didn't really ever come to be anything.
Right. And speaking of Daveed Diggs, what did he really have to be in this movie?
No, not at all. I was excited to see him because I love him. He's in Hamilton and the whole deal. But he definitely did not need to be in this movie. His whole thing was like, these paintings freak me out. And so he was supposed to be like flirting with coming to their agency. And then he's like, nah, I don't like these paintings. I'm going back to my old one. And that's kind of it. He's like, he doesn't die because he pieces out before he gets really involved in it. And yeah, he served no purpose in this film other than to just break up Jake Gyllenhaal and his girlfriend.
Right. And similarly, John Malkovich was in it, and his only purpose was to get poached by Rene Russo's like enemy. And that's pretty much it. Like, he serves no other purpose in this movie.
Well, hang on. He drew a bunch of circles on the beach at the end.
Right. And the end credit scenes is him just drawing circles on like the on the in the sand. Like, really, I don't know why he was even in the movie.
Yeah, like, he's a big name, and he's like a dryly funny guy. I could see him having been maybe more of like a comedic foil to the rest of the movie, but then a bunch of his scenes got cut in editing, and they couldn't just be like, John Malkovich, we're cutting your character altogether, so they just left in little bits here and there. But he really was, as soon as it started getting like spooky, he wasn't in it. Like, they sent him to the lake house, and that was the last that we saw him.
Yeah, they did have a pretty good joke with modern art when the guy who got hung came to visit him. Did you pick that up?
Oh yeah, where he's looking and he's like, this pile of stuff is amazing, and he's like, nope, that's just garbage.
Yeah, like this movie really just rips into like modern art, and I think art critics in general, because Jake Gyllenhaal's character is an art critic who is so pretentious. I really think the writer of this at one point had just been overly criticized for something he had wrote, and he's like, I'm going to kill critics.
Yeah, this movie seemed like it wanted to be two different things. It wanted to be, first, a horror movie, and second, it wanted to be a movie about like politicking and subterfuge in the high-end art community, and I don't think it walks that line well enough to do both of those things appropriately. And so they both kind of seem like, I don't know, they both seem like they're missing something.
Yeah, and I will say, I think it's better as the horror movie, because once it actually got to the supernatural parts, like, it definitely kept my interest better, but that's not until 45 minutes in, so like an hour and 10 minutes of it was okay. The first 45 was definitely more focused on like art politicking, and that was so boring. At one point, like, the biggest storyline I have marked down, I'm like 32 minutes in, nothing has happened except Jake Gyllenhaal's character, who was introduced as gay, is now straight and dating like his girlfriend. Like, for some reason, like that's what happens.
Yeah, and like, he gets into a big fight with Toni Collette about something that I'm not really clear on. Natalia Dyer has to tell him that Rene Russo's been spying on him through his ex-boyfriend, and so it's all just, it's very like, yeah, it's very politicky.
Yeah, they had a couple weird like underplots where one of his one friend was like, oh, because she thought like the Rene Russo's character was paying him for good reviews. She's like, oh, it just happens to be that like all of your good reviews, she just happens to always get that and never a bad one. And it's like, oh, his boyfriend's like spying on him. But why is that a subplot in this movie about a ghost killing people through his paintings?
Yeah, it didn't add anything to this for me.
And then the movie wouldn't end. Like, we get like one part where you're like, okay, it's ending. Rene Russo got the buzzsaw to cut her neck off through a tattoo somehow. And then we go and it's like, oh no, they're setting up a sequel. Now there's a homeless guy selling Deeze's paintings. And then you cut to black and it's like, oh no, there's John Malkovich on the beach drawing circles. Like, this movie just keeps going when it should not.
Yeah, it definitely didn't really know where it wanted to go and when it needed to stop.
So this movie had a $21 million budget, which is pretty low budget for some of the names they have in it. It definitely seems like it. There's not a ton of special effects other than the Deeze murders, but it's a Netflix original, so we don't have anything to like box office to match it against. Do you know how this is done with critics?
Yeah, so Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is a 62%. Audience is 36%. This doesn't really surprise me at all. This definitely seems like a movie that critics would think is better than it actually is, and audiences would be just flummoxed by.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to the audience on that. I might put it a little bit lower, but I did not particularly enjoy this one.
Yeah, this was. I don't think I would recommend this. I was going back and forth. I was on the like, I don't know if I recommend this to anyone. And I think the more we've talked about it, I'm coming down on a no on this one.
Yeah, my thing on it is I actually did like parts of the last half of it, but I really think they need to cut this movie down by about 20 minutes or so, just because like the first, like I said, like the first 45 minutes, nothing happens. Like they could move that along, and then I would be like, yeah, it's like a very generic horror movie. Like it's a little bit different of a take, like the ghost is inhabiting paintings or whatever. But there's just so much random stuff going on, and it's not like bad funny. It's not even like the modern art satire is sort of funny, but I don't know. Like it's just boring.
Yeah, I agree. It is this. Yeah, I'm with you. It needed big chunks of it taken out and reworked.
All right, this week Christian and I both watched the newest Pixar movie Onward. Now this is available on Disney Plus. I think it actually had its theater run cut short due to the coronavirus. I honestly, Christian, I think they marketed this movie pretty badly because it was not what I expected it to be.
So yeah, I'm always a little confused by marketing when it comes to just being at the theater all the time because I see everything. So people tell me like, "Oh, I haven't heard about this movie at all." Meanwhile, I've been watching the trailer for like 6 months. But the first trailer for this, the teaser, just made it seem like it was kind of lighthearted and goofy. It was, oh, we have to go get this item from a man has sent us to get an item for him. This is definitely a quest. And then the second trailer, you found out about the angle about the dead dad, and I was like, ooh, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I had only saw one article on it, or not one trailer on it, and I like what I got from it was like, oh, like, and I'm wrong. Like I was like, oh, it's like How to Train Your Dragon like story where like you're finding magic in a world or something that you had thought was not existent, but it really wasn't that. It was more about finding their dad.
Yeah, and like reclaiming magic in a world that kind of doesn't care about it anymore.
Yeah, I will say what I did like about this movie was I like the world that they established. Like Pixar does a very good job establishing their worlds quickly. And so the beginning is pretty exposition heavy, but it's like the one of the brothers basically reading like a D&D manual about like how the world changed and people stopped using magic and stuff. I thought they did a good job of setting up that world where magic like could exist, but not really, but also like why there's a bunch of different creatures around.
So I agree, although I could have done without hearing that exposition twice within like 15 minutes of each other.
Right, what through from the beginning, and then like was it the dad's letter or something?
Yeah, the dad left them a note and they started reading it, and I was like, this is just the opening monologue again. It
Right.
had like one or two extra sentences at the end of it, and that was it. And so I could have gone with like a fade out where they started reading it and I made the realization, and then it was just like quiet with music and facial reactions. I didn't need to hear the whole thing twice.
Yeah, one thing that, and maybe this is just because it's a kids movie, and as I've gotten older and watched more, I'm like, I'm now getting better at like picking out elements. Like it was a little bit predictable where he was like creating that list about like I want to drive and I want to be like dad and blah blah blah. I was like, oh, he's going to fulfill this by the end, you know, and you're kind of picking out random things like that. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I don't think it's necessarily the movie. So like it's a kids movie. I did love how they like this really gave me D&D ideas of like as like, oh, this is cool how they were inspired by D&D magic and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's I think the first thing that made me a little off on this movie. I had a hard time putting into words why I was left kind of meh on this, because everybody I talked to absolutely loves it, and so I was excited. I wanted to watch it and I missed it during its short theater run. So I was excited it came to Disney Plus, but it just felt like a D&D game, but without all of like the absolute crazy buffoonery that I come to expect from the players.
It was a serious-ish D&D game.
Yeah, and it felt bland in comparison. Because like I've done a bunch of campaigns, I've played them, I've DM'd one or two, and I've listened to a bunch of like D&D podcasts where everyone's just absolute lunatics, and yeah, everybody in this took everything very seriously, and nobody tried to like seduce a statue or anything, and so it yeah, I don't know, maybe that's part of the reason that I felt kind of disappointed in this, but I did love the Raven Point puzzle. I thought that was very clever, and that's actually something I could see being used in a legit campaign.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I liked how they obviously like it's a pared down spell book, but if like I could see this becoming a television series where they're like, look at all the magic we can do, because they're like, oh yeah, like that invisible bridge, and you can make people small. Like I liked how they incorporated that into kind of being like him learning lessons along the way.
Yeah, the D&D manual as a history book was definitely something that I was behind for sure.
I also like that they had a variety of creatures in this, and they kind of poked fun at them like losing their former glory. What did you think of the Manicore?
Manicore, easily my favorite part of this movie.
Right, like she's posited as being like this ex like insane adventure, and now she's running a Chuck E. Cheese.
But man, when she gets her groove back, I was all in. When she stabbed that pawn shop employee, I almost fell out of my chair. I loved it.
Yeah, that's the thing is like this movie did lean into some areas I didn't think they would. Like I was like, oh my gosh, she killed that, and they're like, no, it's paralyzed.
Oh man, yeah, like parts of this I really really enjoyed. I loved that. I loved her whole thing really. I liked some of the puzzles that they had to do. It felt legitimate, like a campaign, but yeah, I don't know. Parts of it just nothing felt new in this, despite the fact that it is kind of something I've never seen before. All the elements just felt recycled.
Yeah. One thing I did like was that he named his van Guinevere or whatever, the horse, and then like when he set it off, like it broke the tire, so it was galloping off to its death. I thought that was pretty funny. But one thing I'm torn on, because it is definitely the emotional part of this is, on one hand you have so you have two sons wanting to meet their father, and I actually thought it was hilarious that they only like got half of their father's body back. I thought they did a lot of good with the comedy on like having the fake upper body and that it running into stuff and causing problems.
True.
But like the entire emotional issue is it's one brother who had never met their dad and always wanted to. It's like what he always wanted, and it's the other brother who failed to tell his dad goodbye because he was too scared when he was sick. And so like that's the entire like emotional impact, because you're like, oh, these guys want to meet their dad, and then at the end only one of them gets to. Which I was surprised they went in that direction. And the audience never actually meets the dad.
No. And so that's something, like, that is the one thing I will say, like, Disney and Pixar are big on, like, defying expectations and like, crashing through what the audience thinks is going to happen. And that, I didn't really feel like there was a lot of that in this. Like I said, a lot of it felt recycled, but that was the thing that I was not expecting. I did not think that at the end of this, the main character wasn't going to get what he wanted.
I agree with you, but upon reflection, and I actually didn't think of this till I read your notes on it, I think it makes sense because, like, we're shown it's like, okay, it's the I cannot remember the name, it's the younger brother's story, but really, like, he's doing the hero's journey, and ultimately, like, the hero self-sacrifices, so he gives it to his brother who he thinks deserves it more. So I think it does make sense in that sense.
It, like, yeah, I mean, I understand why they did it, but it just seems like there isn't really a lesson there. Or at least not a lesson that I would want to, like, teach to a child. Where it's like, try as much as you want, sometimes, like, your dreams just won't come true. Or, like, sometimes you have to sacrifice your dreams for somebody else's. Like, that's true, but, like, this is a kids movie. Like, make it lighthearted at the end. Let the kid have what he wants. It felt, I don't know, like vindictive almost.
Yeah.
Like, they were like 20 feet away. It would have been no problem for the older brother and the dad to just run down the hill real quick to let the kid say hello to his father.
Right. Well, I was kind of surprised. Well, not surprised. I thought it was funny they went in the direction where it's like they had the stepdad in it too, and he's like, "Oh, this is awkward." It's like, wait, you're reviving your dead dad?
I did not care for him.
No, I thought he was fine, but you definitely like it was a very generic like stepdad in an awkward situation, but also the stepdad's a police officer, which always seems to be the case in shows like this.
He's a police officer, and I wasn't sure if he was supposed to be a centaur or just a horse, like a horse.
I think he's a centaur, right?
Well, either way, his name was Colt Bronco, which was just like, come on.
Yeah,
that was like nobody tried on that one.
What did you think about the dragon at the end?
I thought it was cool. I could have done without like the goofy cartoon face that it had, but I did think it was neat how it ripped the school apart. And I liked how they circled back around to the fountain. That was like a Chekhov's gun I was not expecting.
Yeah, I was surprised they did it, but as soon as they did, I was like, oh, stone dragon. And it's like their mascot was a dragon. I was like, I know where this is going.
Yeah. Yeah, I did like that. I also like that the kid had to, and of course this is another fairly predictable thing, like the list you were talking about before, but to defeat the dragon, the kid had to use like all of the spells that he had learned in rapid succession.
Yeah. Dude, this show is definitely, this movie's definitely going to get like a TV show on Disney at some point, like at least one season. Like it has enough where they can build off of it. Like it has a relatively interesting world. The characters are likable. I don't think they'll get Chris Pratt to do the voice for it, but it's one of those where I think they have enough to create a show off, and I think they will. They tend to do that with a lot of their stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. They could get Chris Pratt. It's Disney money.
Yeah, well, reminds me a little bit of Big Hero 6.
Yeah, I could see that a little bit. I like Big Hero 6 a lot more than I like this, though.
Right. I like Big Hero 6 a lot, too, but it's like one of those where, like, that was ripe for them doing a side series.
Yeah.
So do you know how this fared in the box office?
Box office, I mean, it did well. Its budget was between 175 and 200 million. It made 61 million domestic and 103 million worldwide. It's not great, but you have to consider that the coronavirus shutdown really, I'm sure, cut into this. It was only out for, I think, 2.5 weeks before almost all the theaters shut down. So I'm sure it would have made its budget back given a couple more weeks.
Right. And this was one of the first movies that they were proactive and they're like, you can buy this early, like, and then they put it on Disney Plus because I'm guessing they didn't see the return because we were actually going to rent it. We didn't know you had to buy it. And we're like, well, I don't want to pay $20 for it. Like, I'll wait 2 weeks till it comes to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics have this at 87% and the audience has it at a 95%. Do you agree with those numbers?
That's so high. No, I don't. I can't imagine putting this much higher than like a 55 or 60.
I would disagree with you on that. I would say, like, for me, I'd probably put it in the 70s. Like, I thought it's a solid, like, Pixar movie. It's not one of my favorites, but it's like an hour and a half or whatever. It's a good watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on record hating the Toy Story movies, so it's better than Toy Story. But, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine watching this again.
So would you recommend our audience check it out?
I guess. I mean, everybody and their mother has Disney Plus now, so if you've got Disney Plus, you can watch it for free. Like, go for it. I had gotten rid of my Disney Plus, and so I got it back for the month mainly so I could watch this. Because I was excited for it based on the previews, and I honestly think I'd rather have my $7.
I would definitely, if you have Disney Plus, I would say check this out. If you have kids, definitely check it out. Like, they'll like it. I think this is fine. Like, it's a fun movie. There are definitely worse movies out there that you can watch if you have all this streaming stuff. And it's quick, which, you know, I like quicker movies. Like, it doesn't feel that long. Like, we just talked about Velvet Buzzsaw. Velvet Buzzsaw felt like it lasted forever, and it's
Yeah, it was
only like
incredible.
20 minutes longer than this was.
Yeah, I will say that this did go by fairly quickly. It was an easy watch.
All right, guys, we're going to give a quick update on generally what we've been watching or playing this weekend, what we're going to be watching and playing in the upcoming week. Christian, have you watched or played anything good?
Well, like I said last week, I've been playing a lot of Horizon. I'm probably 50% of the way through the story again. Community came to Netflix, which I watched the first maybe season and a half of and really enjoyed. So I've been watching a lot of Community in the past week or so. I watched The Core, which is on Netflix, and it was like one of those situations where I know it's terrible, I know I hate it, but I had to watch it again just to remind myself, and oh boy, it did not disappoint. Otherwise, I've got a couple movies in my Netflix queue that I want to try and get to. Hopefully hopefully I have enough free time in this busy world that I'm living in.
Yeah. So this week I've honestly just played a lot more Divinity Original Sin 2. I've completed Act 3, and I really think this game should have ended after 3 acts because I went into Act 4, and it's just like another large city, and I just, I died a little bit, and I'm just like, I don't want to play anymore. But like, I'm so close right now where at the very least I'm going to beat this, my one playthrough, but it was rough yesterday. I was like, oh god, and I just stopped playing. I'm like 55 or 60 hours in, and
oh my god,
it wouldn't be that bad if I knew that this was the end, but I know I still have to do another playthrough on the hardest difficulty, so like it's just like dread instead of like elation, because if it was just like one playthrough, I'd just be like, okay, like, you know, I'm going to just sit here and I'm going to push it out for the next 10 hours or whatever. But it's like, oh, I have to do that. Then I have to do this all again on a harder difficulty.
Yeah, I definitely know that feeling.
I honestly don't know if I'm moving right into the harder difficulty. I'm getting kind of burned out on the game. And Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out on Friday, and I might pick that up. And I also want to pick up the new Doom, but I'm kind of trying to stay on a budget right now. So I don't know. We'll see if I get either of those. Otherwise, TV, I'm up through like partway through season 5 of The Office. I've been trying to find a new show to watch that I can kind of get behind. I've mentioned on the show before, I'm a huge fan of like White Collar and Burn Notice and like those types of sort of cheesy TNT sitcom, like not sitcoms, but procedurals.
Well, I have to say I'm also a huge fan of White Collar because my dog is named Caffrey.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I didn't know you. Maybe you did tell me this before, Christian. I love White Collar.
Yep.
So I'm trying to find a new show like that. I tried. Everyone talked about Blacklist. I didn't like it that much. I tried Leverage today, which is I've seen the most consistent suggestion.
Leverage is great.
Okay, so I watched the first episode and I was like, it's okay. Like I'll continue with it. So I will at least give it a couple more episodes to try out.
Where are you watching that?
So I have an Amazon Fire Stick, and it is on either Pluto TV or I'm watching it on IMDb TV, which is free with Amazon Prime.
Okay. Because I'm always waiting for Leverage to come to Netflix or Hulu, and it never does.
Do you have a Fire Stick?
I don't, but I have Prime.
Somehow you should look into it because in some way I think you can get IMDb TV, which has it on it.
Okay.
But yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about that. I also heard about Suits, but I don't know. It's too close to home. It's about like crappy lawyers. I don't know. So who knows? I also am just like, I should just rewatch White Collar too.
I never did get 100% to the end.
Oh, really? See, I really like it. It's solid.
I really love, I think, the first 3 seasons, and after that, once it starts getting into like corrupt congressmen and stuff, I started to get away from it.
Right. So those are the main things I'm looking at. We'll need to figure out a movie to watch for this week too.
Yeah.
Alright, and now it's time for our Amazon review game. Just a quick recap on the rules. Christian is going to read me a 5-star review for a movie from Amazon. I will get 2 yes or no questions to help me narrow it down. I can then ask for another review or guess. I will get 2 more yes or no questions. I can get a third review, 2 more yes or no questions, then I have to guess. If I get it on the first review, 3 points, second review, 2 points, third review, 1 point, and we are keeping score for the year. Christian, I am ready when you are.
All right. Which one's first? Okay. This is a wonderful story, a mystery that keeps you guessing until the very end. Do you have to pay attention? Yes. Is it dialogue-driven and intelligent? Yes. Does it have a lot of explosions and car chases and well-choreographed fight scenes? No, although there's a little bit of each.
All right, so a mystery with little fighting. Did this come out after 2010?
Yes.
Does this star Daniel Craig?
Yes.
Is this Knives Out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Damn.
I'm going to put that in. I really like Knives Out. Is it like anywhere to watch right now?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just for like rent and buy on like the Play Store.
I'm really excited that they're making that into like a franchise.
Yeah, me too.
It's like, especially if it's like a mystery of the, not a mystery of the week, but something like that. Like, I think that's a great thing to have, especially because those don't really exist anymore. Like, we used to get like, not we, but America in like the 40s and 50s used to get like a Sherlock Holmes movie every year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they're like good, like Basil Rathbone, great in those. I'm not joking. I found it at Walmart at one point. It was like $5 for like all of the movies, like, and I bought them. I love them.
That's awesome.
So we'll see.
You said Basil Rathbone. I genuinely thought that was a character from Sherlock Holmes.
No, it was.
I thought it was a bad guy.
Oh no, Basil Rathbone. He was an actor of Sherlock Holmes. In like the 30s or 40s, whenever those like the old black and white ones were.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
I mean, he does really have a name from Sherlock Holmes. So. I mean, isn't Basil the name of some character in that?
It might be. I know Basil Exposition is the name of the guy from Austin Powers.
Yeah, so yeah. But yeah. So I do like, so I would love for something like that to come about though.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting that, and we're also supposed to be getting the Kenneth Branagh, Agatha Christie movies too.
That'll be exciting. We talked about it. I actually really like the Murder on the Orient Express that they did of Poirot a couple years ago, and I thought they were going to do Murder on the Nile, but they did not. It doesn't seem like they went to do it. Well,
no, they're supposed to.
Are they?
Yeah, a cast was released like a few months ago, but I mean, God knows where it is with production now. But yeah,
right.
it was supposed to come out like spring next year, I think.
I would go watch it.
Yeah, I was excited. I think Josh Gad was supposed to be in it.
One of the most annoying things about like everything getting pushed onto separate streaming devices, like streaming apps now, is I really want to watch like the Poirot television series from the 90s. I watched like the first season when I could easily get it, and I really like it. But now like I have to get BritBox or something, and I'm not paying for that to watch that. And it's like very annoying that's just not on something that I can access easily.
Yeah.
Alright guys, thanks for checking out our episode. If you'd like to contact us, we are at Gambots Network on Twitter, or you can email us at gambots.blog@gmail.com. If you want to give us a suggestion for the Amazon Review Game of the Week, we will probably end up using it. Otherwise, if you're listening somewhere that you can rate or subscribe and you like what we're putting out, please do so. And finally, we have a new website out where we're putting out reviews and a little bit more in-depth discussion on either movies we talk about or movies we haven't gotten a chance to talk about on the show that we still wanted to make some points on. And our website is gamebotsnetwork.com. Thanks for checking in, guys.
Thank you.